it's very good to be here. I was, like they were just saying, one of the liaisons a few years ago. And from there, I met some amazing people, some of which work with me now, and some of which I keep in touch to this day. So enjoy all of the things that the LIA does, because it's very helpful and rewarding, at least it was for me. So thank you for coming today. I hope this is not disappointing. I see some familiar names and faces, and I even see some of my fellow Brazilians. So good to see you guys. So today we're going to be talking about how to, a lot of the questions that I have when I talk to people, it's like, how did you sell that? But how did the client buy it? Like it's like great ideas, we all have them, but then getting the client to buy them, it's like a completely different thing. So a lot of people are usually like frustrated with I just can't sell it. I can't get clients to buy good ideas. So I'll take you through some of the things I've learned through the years with that, and show you some pieces of work that, generate some of those questions of like, how the fuck did you sell this? So I will start by sharing my screen. How the F did you sell that? So, we already talked about this. Let's get into the first slide. So reframing your mindset. So this is something I talk a lot about, and that I had to learn, through the years to do it. Because from the beginning of starting to work in advertising, I always sort of, saw the client the client meetings as like, all right, let's arm ourselves. Let's go to battle. Like, we're going to sell this. And that's the first thing that goes wrong with you trying to get an idea approved, or trying to get your client to be on the same page as you, because you position yourself as like, you're the agency, the client is the client, and you're now going to war. Let's let's win this battle. Let's pick our battles. It's all like, even the terms that we use, it's all about, really selling and going to war and being on opposite sides. I really do believe that once you change that mindset, and once you don't think about it that way, things start changing. So you and the clients are on the same side. You want the ideas that you present to be right for them, and to generate results. Once you show an idea, and they eventually agree to do the idea, and you guys go produce the idea, and the idea generate results, they're going to be like, oh, I want to do more of that. So you don't want to just, think of your own agency interests and what's going to be super, amazing and creative and fun and and not think about okay, my objective is the client's objective, which is sell more of whatever product they make, or change the perception of something, or get get more awareness of the brand, whatever it is. You want to think with the mindset of the client. If it was your brand and your product, what would you and you need to reach those objectives. How do you go about presenting the idea? Do you say do you say things like, oh, it would be really cool if we did this? Or it's like, oh, we think it can be really funny. When you just start, positioning an idea that way, and talking that way, it just feels like you're coming from the perspective of the agency purely, and you're not thinking that what would be effective? What works versus what do you just what's it would be super fun for your portfolio and for award, and what's actually something that's going to do both. Because I'm not obviously creativity is something that generates results in general. So both things can happen at the same time. We just have to shift our mindset to not see the client as the enemy, or someone that you have to convince of something. You go on a journey together. So I think that's very important that, we think about the product shot, we think about the RTBs, sometimes and it's natural, we're all creatives, and we're like, okay, what's the idea? And then we write the idea, we write a script, and we're like, cut to product shot or cut to logo. And then we're like, oh, we'll figure out later what the RTBs are, what are the reasons to believe, what's the product language at the bottom, oh, we'll figure it out. Or we'll talk about the spot, and we'll spend 10 minutes talking about how cinematic it's going to be, and how awesome the scene is going to be, and how the music is going to do this and that, and then cut to product shot. And it's normal, and I do that sometimes to this day, but sometimes it goes a long way. If you think about do you add a slide about how the product's going to be treated? Did you think about some sort of mnemonic device to show how you're going to go from some of the like products that they make, it's going to like, revolve and become the logo at the end. Like little things like that will get the client to be like, oh, they care about that too. They're not just the agency, the creatives kind of like super excited to put something cool in their books. So reframing your mindset is a big thing. Now, empathize with the client. I touched on this a little bit, but if you really don't put yourself in their shoes, and it could be cliche to say, think about how they are thinking and like, imagine if you were them. But it's truly, if you don't understand how they feel, what their fears are, where they're coming from, you can't really address their worries, or you cannot get ahead of them. So, a lot of the times we'll go to meetings, and as soon as they start talking about like, a fear or like how they feel about something, the first thing that we do is we want to like reply immediately to, like we want to push back immediately. So we want to be like, it's like, well, but we fear that like, the brand is not really being, the client, the people are not going to remember who the ad is from. And the first thing that we have to say would be like, oh no, yeah, they will, because like, you just reply right away without kind of taking that moment and being like, oh, interesting, I do understand what you're saying. Or like, okay, let us think about that. Sometimes we know that like the fear that they have might not be not valid, but it might not be something that we think really needs addressing. But if you take a moment and if you take time to say, let us think about that, and we'll go back to you next time, or we'll come back like even after just, at the end of the meeting or in an email, whatever, with like, we thought about what you said, and here's what we think, like why we think you shouldn't be worried about it. Just like make them feel like, you understand from a marketer's perspective that you're the owner of the brand, that your decisions are really influencing, everything how the brand is going to be perceived. There's a lot in the line. So yeah, understanding how they feel, what keeps them up. Like, have you asked your clients lately, like, what are you worried about? What are you kind of like trying to solve? Mostly sometimes we get, deeply into that brief specifically, but there's like other things that we can really show that we care about them, and like what they're really like, what their lives are in terms of taking care of their brand and trying to make sure that they make the right decisions. So, and I said, so like make them feel heard, but also hear them, because also sometimes you learn the trick of just saying, oh yeah, we see where you're coming from, but blah blah blah, and you go right away into the same sort of ping pong of like going back and forth with you, just kind of like replying with your thoughts and more pushing back than really hearing them. Is there any value on what they're saying? And then resilience is key. Building a relationship takes time, and I say that because like I'll show one of the pieces of work that I've done that people say, oh well, how did you sell this? And that took, for us to start doing the first project with that client, it took about 2.5 years for them to buy something. And then they became like the brand that like did award-winning work like back to back for like 4 years. So it takes time. Like when you see something out there, when you see something on AdAge, at Week, like you see it out there and you're like, oh my gosh, how did they sell that? My clients don't buy this. You just don't see that behind it, it's been like years of relationship building, or like months and months of that stuff. So just know that what you need to do is really be resilient, and know that even though you're super excited about that idea that you were like presenting, and the client didn't buy, or the client quickly dismissed it, just try to see that as an opportunity of building the relationship with the client, that they're going to trust you, and you're going to like, next time you come back, they're going to like be okay. They already didn't like buy that previous idea. Like, the next one might be even better, or it might be something that you're just kind of now getting to know the client better. Or so resilience is key, not only with client interaction. I think in this business in general, if you're not resilient, it doesn't matter how creative you are, you don't really go far. The best creatives are the resilient ones. They're not the most the ones that have the first genius idea that comes to mind that could be amazing, but then like as soon as that idea dies, they get frustrated, or this like as soon as it doesn't sell, they're just kind of like, they can't get past that to like think about the next one and the next one and the next one, because it does take time. All right, so make it hard for them to say no. And there's an asterisk, so it says, or make them feel bad for saying no, so they'll say yes next time. Because a lot of the times we present ideas and we expect the clients to buy an idea that is so either half-baked or not presented in the right way, or something that's hard for them to envision. So it's like addressing issues instead of waiting for the clients to bring up is like one of the things. So whenever you present an idea and you already say, I know this might be scary, or I know you might be thinking, whatever the worry that you know they're going to have. So don't try to present ideas and then just say like, oh yeah, everybody's going to love it, it's going to be great. You could just say like, there's a lot of people that are not going to be like, there's people that won't be happy about this, but this is why we think like there's power in it. Or no ideas that don't generate any like any sort of polarization are great ideas in general. If everybody just looks at it and be like, yeah, okay, like that's not necessarily going to be the idea you want, because it's more risky to be ignored, like as a brand, to like see, you know, for people to see something that they paid millions of dollars to be, to buy media everywhere for their message to be seen, but the people don't care about it, then it is for them to do something that people are going to talk about it. So, but instead of just ignoring all of this in the meeting, when we present sometimes ideas, we go and we say why we think the ideas are what the client already might see as red flags. So you get ahead of some of that. You don't pretend that you don't know and like, oh, hopefully they're not going to realize that, or they're not going to mention that. Because by mentioning ahead of time, the client is also going to see that you're on that side, their side. So again, you're not that creative that's really interested in just selling an idea because the idea is like super fun and super crazy. You're the creative that's like, okay, some people might be you know, there will be people complaining. Haters are going to hate. This is what they might say. And that's why we would do this or that in case this happens. So like to elaborate on that, and I was going to elaborate when I show a case study, but we presented an idea before, and we knew that was going to be an idea that was going to be polarizing. So we said, here's like, we would create like a social media, almost like a table of content where you say, if people reply with this idea, if people reply or talk about this idea in social media saying that the idea is disrespectful, this is the reply. This is our reply to it. If people say that the idea is, it's just like, they start kind of like elevating the issue to something that we don't believe really deserves a response. These are the things that they say, and we don't respond. These are the things that we like actually apologize for, or we never apologize. So basically you plan with the client what is going to be the plan of action when you put an idea like that out in the world. So again, to show you care and to show you're not, you have, as an agency, you have as much stake in the ground as they do. You also don't want to be the agency that puts out the, you know, whatever project that's going to be criticized by everybody. You don't want to be the creatives on that idea. So just show them that you also, the stakes are high for you too. Back it up with data and like, you know, similar successful cases. So sometimes you might just use like present like a script, for example, that has a tone that's very ironic and that like, you know, talks about an issue in like a like in a way that's like a parody, and you just might see that in the page, it might be hard for the client to understand exactly like what the tone is. And with just the words, it might just be too scary. So bring up some like references of videos or like spots that have been done with that tone. And say like, see how this is powerful, how did this make you feel? This is what we're trying to create with this. So data also about like, you know, this is how much these pieces here moved people and generated results, even though they were polarizing and there were like haters like hating it or like talking about it. This is like how we move the brand. This is the perception of the brand, or this is how actually, and you can do that with your own case studies because you have the agency's case studies because you have results. So sometimes we'll present like an idea and we'll show like, here's another idea that we've done for a client that had the same, you know, that was also like the same sort of, that they had the same fears as you. And here's actually what we accomplished with the idea. And then they start seeing that that kind of stuff works. And then present something that they can visualize and buy. You know, a lot of the times on big agencies, we're presenting like 360 campaigns and lots of like, campaign idea and like scripts and out of home and radio and like you just present so much. And then you have those like one-off pages like that sometimes we call like the parsley ideas, like deck parsley, which is just like who brand X or activate or like a digital idea, something that you're really excited about that you put on a page, and you put a write-up and you put a visual next to it, and you're like, we present to the client, and then at the end, what they buy the TV, they buy that at home, and they won't buy that idea. And you're like, my client does never buys the cool stuff. But the problem is like also the way we present that stuff is not buyable. Like they can't really see it coming to life. They don't understand exactly like, how you get that, and you just show how their brand is going to be incorporated, how like it makes sense for them and not someone else. So again, with everything that you present, just try to make it so the client can understand what it looks like, what's the message, like how is the brand talked about, or what's their point of view. Just the more that you make it baked and almost something that you could just hand it back to a producer and they would know exactly what to go from there, who to reach out to make that idea happen, the better, because then everybody can visualize it, everybody can buy it. So with that said, I have a couple of ideas to show, like, there's stuff from previous life, and then there's stuff from, Mischief, which we started 2 years ago. And we have some case studies that are like that, how the fuck did you sell it? So, but to start with the previous life one, because this is a brand, Sandy Hook Promise is a brand that, I used to run in my previous agency with my partner, with one of my old partners. And this is a brand that took, again, I think about 1.5 years, 2 years, or maybe a little more for them to do the first spot, which was, before it was actually a documentary. But there was a lot of like strategic back and forth, and a lot of just like, what's the right place for the brand to play in. And at the time I wasn't running the account. So Peter Alsante kind of like, had that whole holding hands with the client. Let's try to see like, what's the right thing to launch with. And they did like a documentary, but then after that, I think it was like almost 2 years into the relationship, they did the Evan spot for Sandy Hook Promise, which is a spot that won a bunch of awards. And then after that, if you see every year, that's what after Evan is when I started running it with Peter. After that, every year there was like a piece of work that was done for that brand that was, award winning, and that the process was just so much different, because the client now like understood the power of the, they trusted us, the agency. They knew, that we had arrived at the right place for the brand. And so this is one of the pieces of work that we did there. So I'll just play and I can talk a little more about it.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
So what happened with that was, when they landed on this idea that Sandy Hook Promise was going to be all about like, learning the science to prevent school shootings, and that would be, and the thing that all the communication pieces that they did for that brand need to be about teaching people the science, because that concept was not something easy to grasp. Like when I started like working on the brand, I was like, wait, there's science for a school shooter? Like you start, it's not something that, the signs for like some sort of like disease, or the signs for like, someone having autism, like, that there are signs for that, but you don't necessarily know, that there are signs for like, to recognize that like some, there might be someone might be showing signs of like, doing something like this. So that was kind of like, okay, we need to communicate the signs, and there's like a lot of different ways to do it. So for the first few years, there was like, okay, let's really hammer home the idea of the signs and like what the signs are. And then when we got to this point, the sort of like beyond the idea of we already had a relationship with the client, we already like they trusted us, that they trusted the director, so we had the same director shooting like all the different campaigns throughout the years pretty much, and everything was very, it felt like a team, the same team. That's like every year we're like, okay, what are we doing this year again, and how are we going to do something that feels like powerful and that's going to move the needle. And so in this year particularly, it was every year we did a PSA for them in December, which is the anniversary of the shooting. And instead of December, we actually decided to do it for back to school because the landscape had changed. So, how do we sell this? How do we go that, like, you might think like, oh, how did you push the client to do something this bold? And like, we didn't need to push the client. We like I was saying, like, we don't go in selling. We had a conversation about, hey, this year we think things might be different because instead of doing like a PSA for your anniversary, the landscape had changed. So culturally now kids are going to school and they're learning how to survive shootings. So like if you go to schools, they're doing instead of fire drills or on top of fire drills, they're doing shooting drills. So they teach the kids how to survive shootings. And we, Sandy Hook Promise, as like, we know the brand. We even say we feel like part of the brand. We believe that people need to prevent them, not learn how to survive them. So here is the way that we think we should do that, and showing how back to school is not the same and how that's messed up and how people should not be doing that. And instead, you could still do that, but like most importantly, you need to be learning the science to avoid it from happening in the first place. So when you're telling this to the client, they can almost not argue back, or they understand that like, oh yeah, strategically, we're talking about the brand, what's right, what's the cultural environment around it. We're not talking about like, hey, let's do like an ad that's really going to shock people. Hey, wouldn't it be crazy if we go in and we like show kids like getting, in the back to school spoof commercial and like show that. So no, it's not like that. And then you develop like the scenarios together. You talk, you as the experts on the issue, or just in general, the clients at the end of the day, they're the experts on the product. And so you want to learn from them also, like, what are the things you want to do together. This next one, send nudes. And we did this. It was one of the first projects that we did for at Mischief for Kraft mac and cheese. I would just play the case study and then we can talk about it.
We're all looking for ways to share strength with those that we care most about. Some may call or send money, but Kraft says you need to send nudes.
The hashtag send nudes.
Nudes of the mac and cheese variety. Relax.
I see what they're doing there.
People are in need of extra comfort. That's why it's always a nice gesture to send nudes, so they know you're thinking of them. Nudes. Not nudes.
Through October 11th, you can send tasty nudes. Gosh, who wrote this? By visiting enjoynudes.com.
Let's do it. Kraft has a new campaign to help.
In honor of National Noodle Day today, Kraft is giving away some of its iconic blue boxes.
Trending on Twitter as customers received the surprise noodles. Thank you for the nudes.
I'm absolutely obsessed with this campaign.
It's a provocative idea.
Social media moms and QAnon believers were very quick to criticize this cheeky campaign.
Can you imagine Kraft macaroni and cheese is facing a backlash for an ad campaign?
What? We're talking about macaroni and cheese. I know.
I thought this was creative. I thought this was great fun.
In the event that there's any confusion about this, let's take a step back. Always send nudes, never nudes. The only thing you should never not send is nudes.
They even blurred out the noodles. It's...
Oh, my.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That's exactly what is happening with that story.
Yeah, so with this one, it's like you're presenting an idea to Kraft mac and cheese that's like, that's about a pun with the word nudes. But it's way beyond that. That's why, again, you don't go to the client just being like, isn't this like, let's do a fun pun and like, you know, do like send nudes campaign. You go with them. First of all, the brief was all about, you know, there was another brand that was trying to reach a young, that was targeting a younger audience with a new mac and cheese brand. And the audience was like younger college students. So the idea would be targeted them. So it's like a different audience than their current, like, you know, family audience. But you go to them with an idea that is relevant to the moment strategically. So what's happening in this landscape and when do we present this? It was like a few months into quarantine, people were very disconnected. People were like feeling alone. And people were eating comfort food. So you would go to supermarkets and like, you know, the shelves would be empty, like mac and cheese was like gone. And people were just lonely. So you go to them being like, you know, in a moment where people feel lonely, disconnected, and they're not having interactions and needing comfort food, let's do send nudes. Then you go to them saying it in the same meeting, then you're like, that's the idea. And you're like, what do you think? No, you go and say, listen, we know this is like an idea that people will have stuff to say. There were people being like, that's crazy and absurd and not okay that Kraft is saying this. And people are going to be saying like, that's awesome and funny. And like, come on, guys, can we not have fun anymore? And we were ready for all the responses. And we knew like what to say when people respond in a certain way versus other ways. And we knew that there were going to be some backlash, but we were going to do like another PR move, another PR story, get like another, PR moment because of the backlash. So it's almost like, you know, when you have campaigns, and I've done stuff different, like for other brands too, like when you know that there might be like a network that might not run the spot or might cancel it or something is going to happen. And you use that as another moment to fuel PR and get like millions of impressions again on that campaign that you like, you know, that you didn't have to pay for. So that's what happened. We got a wave of like launch PR, everybody, you know, like put the word out there. And then like, you know, like a few weeks later, you get like another wave of PR just being like, QAnon moms are complaining about this. Like, isn't this crazy? And then you get people defending the campaign being like, come on, can we not have fun anymore? Like, can people be like more, you know, okay with just find something else to do in life? So like there's, and the brand is being talked about and the results are getting achieved and like it's sold out in like 2 seconds. It was very successful for Kraft in general, but we went in talking about all of those things and being prepared for it. So that's another case study. And then be a VILF. This one I brought specifically because I think like the power of like real, again, it's all about strategy. We talk about Mischief being like a creative agency, but we all feel like it's very of a strategic shop first, because you need the best way for you to, again, I'm not going to use the word sell ideas because I think it's more about talking to your clients about your ideas, like coming up with them together, developing them together. Is getting strategically thinking about the campaign in the right way, or having like a statistic that really makes the claim that you're making with the work almost like no one can question it. It's here, like it's a fact. So I'll play this and I'll explain what I mean.
18 to 29-year-olds skipped the last election, but made sure.
With the upcoming election being so important, OkCupid wanted to get people to vote. According to their user data, voters are 63% more likely to get a match. So to get people to the polls, we put the racy in democracy.
Online dating platform OkCupid is encouraging people to vote by using a rather suggestive term.
VILF.
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 VILF. E stands for the voters.
Voter I'd like to friend, right?
going to do a quick makeup tutorial. So the foundation that we're going to use today is actually located at vote.gov.
He can flex his abs, his jaw, and his volunteer work with children, but he can't flex his voter pin because he never registered.
Voting is sexy.
Nothing sexier.
VILF?
Well done on that story.
One of the stupidest things I've heard all week.
So with this, what I was saying is that we found out that, I forget exactly the statistic now that we just showed here, but it was like a big percentage of people were more likely to, match if they were voters or if they had the voting badge. Like they did these badges like on the profile that you could say like, I'm registered to vote. And those people were like, it was crazy how much more they were getting matches, which means they're more attractive to people, which means you want to those are the people that you want to fuck. So obviously we played with the term MILF, and we did VILF, and it was an idea that was like grounded in the strategy and in the strategic thinking and the statistic coming from the users, the user behavior of their app. So the users were validating that that behavior. So we just had fun with it, and it felt right for the brand. And this is another one that I wanted to show you guys. And did I have one more? Let's see. Great. So this one, I promise, by the way, we don't just do sex ideas. I just realized I put send nudes, VILF, and bless your fucking cooch back to back, which might make me seem really inappropriate, crazy, and mischief. But I guess it just happens to be some of the ideas that has some interesting stories on like the background of like how they ended up coming to life and being an idea out in the world versus just an idea in a deck. And I'll play this one and then I'll explain why I put this in here.
I'm about to tell you the secret for how to bless your fucking cooch. It is an absolute blessing, and you can dry shave with this. That's fucking saying something. You're fucking joking. They made cooch blessing cream, like literal cooch blessing cream, for a smooth ass hoo-ha. And the back is even better. The instructions, they directly quoted. That's my instructions.
Why is it taboo to talk about our hoo-has? The answer is it shouldn't.
Why be uncomfortable?
Let's just talk about it.
First you go down, then you go sideways on both sides.
Now you have a smooth ass hoo-ha. You're welcome.
All right. So this one is to talk about a couple of things. One is once you have a good partner, like a client that you've now built a relationship with, and a client that knows, like, you're on the same page. You have a client kind of like helping you come up with ideas. Like you have a client feeding you ideas. You have a client that texts you or emails you on like randomly on a night with a TikTok video of this influencer that candidly was just doing this video, like talking about like how to shave her hoo-ha with this product that she loved more than anything, and like super authentic. No one had paid her to do it, and the client is like, what should we do with this? Should we do something about it? And we're like, yes, we should absolutely do something about it. We go back and like, you'd concept on what's the right way to use it. And the simple idea that we landed on was to just make those words the words in the product. And then you go back to a client who's, you go back right away to a client in a very sort of like, not, hey, let us think about it for like a couple of days. Let's put together like a deck that feels like, super thought out. It's almost like, okay, what if we make the, here's like quick 2-pagers, or like, what if we make her words, the word in the product, and how, and then the client's like, okay, I think I can then like go to my, production department and like get some of them produced right away so we can send it to her. Okay. So it's like this, seeing the client as you see a member of your team, where you're like texting or emailing and like exchanging ideas and building on each other. In a way that it feels like, okay, this is how you can make something happen like this, that affects a product label, that happens fast, that's reactive to something it's happening in culture. So it's more to be like, you sell this because you have that relationship, because you built that relationship. And then also you sell this because you have like, it's sometimes like you're bulletproofing your ideas. Like those are the words of that girl, not our words. This is like how she feels, not how we feel. Like we're just like giving it a voice. We're just like, we're just enhancing her voice. We're just putting her like opinions in like that, in a way that's more visible to everybody. So no one can criticize that. So it's like those types of things. I think it's very important when you're framing your thinking and your ideas and like building the relationships with your clients. And with that, I have a thank you slide for you guys.
Pleasure to meet you. I have a question for you about many of the ideas that you presented today and many of the ideas that you end up doing recently, with the drops and making actual products or services. And I wanted to ask you, where do you think advertising's headed? And are we really going in the direction of products and services, that generate a quick PR burst and then we never talk about it again? Or do you think we're actually going to manage to like sort of become like serial entrepreneurs, like as creatives, and have ongoing products rather than just like one-offs, So do I, like, if I want to create products and services, do I have to go to a startup in the future, or will I have room for creativity like within the industry? What do you think?
Let me make sure that I understood correctly. But I think when you talk about like, the future of advertising and the types of things that we're making, like, is it just kind of like one-off activations, brand acts, like a product developed, or if it's more brand building in general. Like, I think if that's part of the question, I would say that there are different ways to build a brand. I think people get, there's like whenever you have, for example, EOS, the brand that we just talked about last, whenever you have like a brand that knows what they stand for, or that we create together what they're going to stand for and what their personality is and what their voice is and what is the like, perhaps like the platform, idea, or like the tagline that like everything kind of can live off of that. You can come up with, I think brand building is okay for you to be doing like brand acts after brand acts and engaging people and doing these like PR hits, like, throughout a year to continue building that brand. And it's easy to do when the brand is established and has already like, a voice, a personality. It has like what the brand stands for. When the brand doesn't stand for anything yet, I think is when you want to stop and you want to, think about, okay, let's do a brand like a brand platform. Let's think about like what's going to be the big idea that everything's going to like ladder up to. And once everybody agrees to that, it's so easy to come up with like ideas that you can do to keep cementing that positioning. Does that answer part of your question? I'm not sure I understand the part about the startups.
Yeah. So the part about the start, that does answer part of the question, because I mean, everything is everything. But I wanted to know more about so for example, there's a reason why us as, agencies don't really get into the product and right, like into the actual product. So what I see you doing is getting into the product and changing that. So adding a new function, whether it's a new, So like, And I wanted to first celebrate that and see your vision for that in the future, I think.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think they're like I think there's value in clients that involve the agency in that process, or like are flexible enough that you can like affect like packaging, where you can actually like affect something like a new line of product or something like that. It's like it's sometimes harder because that's not easy to change, and that's like a lot of the stuff that has been established for a reason. But we've had clients come to us with like 2 years in advance or a year and a half in advance to be like, here we're like launching this, or we're like going to be rebranding this, and we want your help to be able to affect the product as well. It's rare opportunities, and we get really excited because being able to impact the product is awesome. And there's a lot of times that we present multiple ideas that like affect the product, and they are like, nah, sorry, can't do it. But I think some of the clients can see also the value in doing it, not for the long term, but doing it for the like to kind of generate engagement with an audience. And so yeah, I think it's harder when it's going to be like long term, but I think if you keep pushing your clients and presenting ideas that do still like tweak the product in some way, or like label, and as long as you know where the barriers are, if they are like hey guys, we really don't want you guys to like mess with anything product related like in this next round, or like we cannot affect like packaging in any way, or for that we need like a lead of like a year. And I know so many ideas like that you see winning Cannes, like even Grand Prix, like those ideas were like 2 years in the making sometimes, and we don't realize that. All we see is like, oh, my client would never do that, or like my client would never buy that, but it sometimes takes like 2 years. So I think we just keep presenting and trying to show the clients the value that it has when we can have an impact on stuff beyond just communicating the benefits of the brand or the product.
Hey, Bianca, first of all, thanks for sharing, and congratulations for all your work, your journey. You're a reference and inspiration for all of us, for sure. And I don't know, I was thinking, I worked a lot with beer brands like Budweiser and Stella Artois. It was always difficult because it's like huge company with a lot of steps and people giving their opinion. So because I love especially the work you do for Coors Light. Mm-hmm. So how is this relationship? How is this client? Can you share a little bit of, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, two things. One, yes, there are industries that have like its barriers. So alcohol, like there's so many legalities around it. There's so many ideas that we present that the client is also excited about. They're like, but that's a tough one. Like, I don't know if I can fight that battle now, or I don't know. It's not even fighting the battle that they're not up for trying to like fight it. It's more like, I don't think we can make that happen. That's just like a no-go, but if you have a partner, the key to me is having a partner on the other side that has your same ambitions. And in our side, we're lucky to have Marcelo, who's like amazing, and his team, Chris, and like, the other people in the team who are champions of that kind of stuff. They won't sleep at night. They're not doing that kind of work. So together, they will come back and say, oh man, like you guys put us in like, you present stuff that's tricky for us to figure out, but we will figure out like, oh, can we, like, we're going to have to like change our packaging, or distribution is really tricky. Like, how do we do this? Okay, like, here are the problems. Let's go talk to the legal team together. Like, we'll figure it out. No matter what, we're going to make this idea happen, but I'll go make it out. So try to find inside your client that person that can like happen more and more as you start getting into, more of the relationship with the client. And I know like some people here are not, are still in, I don't know if you're going to every client meeting or not, and having like how much content you have the client. But the more that you have that, the more you start recognizing the people that are really there to do that kind of stuff. And you try to like partner with them to make stuff happen, to like be like, okay, I'm going to continue to challenge like you and bring stuff that's hard to make, because I really think that that's going to be the best for the brand, the best for like everyone. And the client itself will also present stuff, and they'll be like, do you really believe this is where we should spend our efforts? And this is the idea that's the best idea for this thing. Like, so they'll challenge us back. So sorry, there is not like a secret to like, oh, really do this and it's going to work. I do think it's about like finding partners on the other side that like have the same ambitions for the brand. But again, I also think it goes back to Marcelo even tells me, like, because he was at Burger King before, Marcelo, the course, VP, he's like, there's some ideas that you see out in the world that took a year and a half for us to be able to find a loophole or find a way to make it happen. So it's resilience, it's finding the right partner, it's trying to work around their process a little too.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you so much for was amazing. All of these campaigns have been so long. It's just amazing to see the my question, I believe it was kind of already asked, but I'll ask it anyways. I was just curious, for those clients that maybe you don't have as much of an established relationship with and they're a bit more fearful, what would you say is the most important factor for convincing them to sort of take that extra step and do something really bold? Is it, would you say, like the strategy and those data points that prove that this is a cultural moment that you can tap into? Or is it in the way that you actually present the idea?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think sometimes I think with Mischief specifically, like the clients that are coming to us, they are coming to us because they're seeing the work that we put out in the world. And they're like, okay, we're coming for this kind of work. So sometimes like people are also like, not to take the, the merit from the team. But I'm just saying sometimes people come to us and they're like, how, like, and we're like, okay, clients see what we put out in the world. And they're like, they come to us because they want that. So they already know that they want something a little different than maybe like, say, your client that hasn't been doing that kind of work for a while. And now you need to convince them that that's what they need to do. I think so. I think you could use multiple like tools or things to do. You could do the thing where you're like showing some case studies and showing like that are relevant to them and showing how that affected the business results. I think it's a little bit of the whole presentation of like how you're reframing your mindset, how you are like, partnering with them, how you like hear what they have to say, what are their ambitions, like what would be success to them, like, and then just by understanding and getting on the same page, like maybe you can start plotting like what to do with the brand and how to get there. It's a little broad, but I hope that helps.
No, yeah, definitely. Thank you. And then just to give a little one-off question, sure. All of the campaigns you showed, they're really grounded in a strategy or a data point. I was just curious if at Mischief, like how aligned your creative is with your strategy. Do they usually come to does your strategy team usually come to your creative team with these data points, or do you sort of collaborate on them and then come to a solution together?
Yeah. Our strategists are amazing. Like they do our homework. Like it's just creative to do their homework. So they come to us sometimes with like, we're like, this is not a brief, this is an idea. And that's awesome. Thank you. Like, let's just go run with it. But I think in general, like we're very strategically oriented. I think Greg, Greg, our CCO, he has always been like that. And I think we grew up under him, at BBDO before, kind of learning that and seeing the value of it. And I think we all collaborate a lot in it. So we'll go to the client together to get the brief. Then, the strategists will go off and try to like come up with a bunch of different ways in. Then we will regroup with them and workshop things. They'll say like, okay, here are 10 different ways in. And we'll just be like, oh, okay, there's something there. There's something here. What about this? What about that? It's like a little brainstorm session with all of us. And then, we'll go and they will be like, is there anything that you're missing here that you haven't seen? And then from there, they'll clean things up, share one more time, and then we'll go share with the client together, like the creatives, and not like the creatives from like everybody in the team, but maybe more of like the leaders of the brand, the project, and the account people and their strategists. And then together we leave that meeting really knowing that everybody is really on the same page with what kind of work that's going to generate, or with what we're doing, because everybody's at that point very aligned and thinking that's like the right territory to play with.
Awesome.
Data is good and important, by the way, but like I don't mean it in a way that's like use data to like tell you what's good, what not. Like it's just like, I think just being, to me, like ideas with real insights and that are like grounded in you're solving real problems are more powerful than others. Sometimes there's like just dumb things that are funny and like are not that grounded in strategy. That's fine. But I think most of the powerful work comes from that. So that's what we try to do before we get to brief.
Definitely. That's awesome. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Of course.
Hi, Bianca. Thank you so much for this presentation. I love the way you described selling the idea and building it with the client as this teamwork rather than some sort of battle of, defending your creative. And I'm amazed by the EOS campaign because it's like the logistics of relabeling and selling a product while it's remaining relevant in a space as fast as TikTok and trends that are, in one day out the next. The logistics of that are like mind-boggling.
I know.
And so,
our client.
yeah, I was curious with that campaign, when you were launching the idea, did you kind of talk about relabeling and selling the product as like a pre-planning, a what if of where it could go? Or did it truly happen kind of live during the campaign? And if so, like what were their fears, or how did you continue to get them to, roll with it? And yeah, stay relevant in such a fast moving social media space.
Yeah. Yeah. And sorry to keep saying the same of like, some of that is that relationship that you built with the client. Cause we were like, either like, you're texting them or you're getting back to them in the next day and just being like, okay, it's been 24 hours, but this is something that we need to react quickly. What if we change the words in the product with the words from the influencer? Is that even doable? Otherwise, we'll go back real quick and think about something else and come back. So like, you're not like taking a week to build a deck to like get ahead of everything. So you're just, working together, and we presented then and they're like, we love it and we can do it. They had the capacity to do it, which were like, really, it doesn't have to be like, because we, it's not putting a sticker on it. They're like actually like mass producing then. And then like after it became successful, they're like, let's put it for real on the site. So I think it's, we were lucky that they already saw the value in that and they could make they could affect the product in the way they did. But it was like very closely working with them and not spending that much time down like a certain a certain avenue once you know that you need to react fast. Does that answer?
So, yes. Yeah. And so was the idea of creating the product something that was talked about before it was doing so well on Twitter? Or was it like a spur of the moment? What if we sell it now? Like
It was like that. We said at some point, it would be awesome to make this like to sell it in general. But for now, let's change the product. Let's send it to the influencer and then like create buzz with doing that. And then once we did it and she posted and we saw the traction that it was getting and people like online commenting like, I want it. They're like, let's do it for real. I don't know if they were at that point, they were like, we can do it. We should do it. Or it was their like thought of like, let's do it for real. I don't remember exactly, but it was after people were reacting that they actually decided to make a real run of it.
That's awesome. It kind of reminds me too of like the shift of influencer culture where people no longer just want to see influencers getting the pretty shiny product. They want it themselves. And so it kind of like really speaks to that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Bianca.
Hi.
It was a really nice presentation, as everyone is saying. And I think I have more of a practical question. So maybe me and any other person here could daily use. You really talked about the relations with clients. So I was wondering, what did you do when you were like junior or mid-level? What did you do to understand and to study about the client? Did you keep asking your creative bosses, your planners, your account managers? How did you study the client, especially when you weren't on those top-notch briefs that have like dozens of slides from the planners? How did you understand the client so you could propose ideas that really could matter to the client, even when you were not like, you didn't have easy access to a lot of information about it?
Yeah. I think because sometimes if you're just like, people tell you to be proactive as you're like junior or mid-level and go present ideas to the other brands you want to be working on. Sometimes you're on an account that you're not that happy with and you want to be working on something else. So you go and present proactive ideas, but you don't know that like where the brand it's at. And like, even if they're open to it and what their positioning is. So what I did, I started going to the people working on that brand, like either the main account person, the account director on it, or like the account people that were, that basically had a good view of the whole picture. And same with the strategist on that brand, and went to them and I asked like, what is going on with the brand, what are they about. Like there were brands that were easier, like for example at BBDO it was like Snickers, and you know like what they're about, like you know that you're hungry, and they are like going to do stuff like you know their positioning very clearly, and that they're not coming up with like a new big different positioning next year, and they won't want to do stuff around it. So like it was a little easier to pitch proactive ideas again when the platform and the idea is so cemented. But I would still go in to be like, what are they doing? Are they open to it? Can I pitch in some ideas? Like, is there like a specific thing that I should know that they are about or wanting to talk about? And then I would go off of that. So I would just try to like go talk to people and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Who were the people that helped you the most when you asked them? Like, were the creative bosses from the other brands, or maybe the planners who really came up with helpful?
I think the planners and the account people, the planners, like both the account people, so they know like what their brand is really headed, like what's going on. They're not open to any proactive ideas right now, or don't bother. Like we're not going to present because like they got upset last time because we're not focusing on the brief right now that we need to focus on. So that like talk to the account people, but then the planner to really tell you what the positioning is of the brand.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. See ya.
I thought you were gonna ask me like who are the people that helped me the most in my career, and I was gonna say the person who has her hand raised to talk next. So.
Hi, Bianca.
Hi.
Congrats! I'm so proud of you, and I would like to ask you. So first of all, yes, thank you for everything that you've been doing. I think that you're leveraging our Brazilian creativity worldwide, and thank you for that. And we know that we just see the success, but the failure, it's with us every day. And what do you do? How you deal with this, with your teams, with your, like with ideas that really don't go ahead and don't move forward? How do you deal with that? And with your teams as well, because it's frustrating sometimes for the teams, and we have to deal with that as well.
Yeah, it's funny. First of all, it's an honor to see you here. Just for those who don't know, Andrea's like the most badass, creative ever. And she has been the CCO of multiple places. She's amazing. She was in Brazil. She's like one of those people where, when you talk about women, talk about like championing each other and helping, or just in general, like looking out for, younger people in the industry and helping them get ahead. She's like the one that says it, the one that does it, not like it's actually, I was in Brazil trying to come to the US and get an opportunity here to talk about joining JWT. And she worked at JWT in São Paulo at the time. And she took time to meet with me, go through my horrible portfolio, gave me amazing advice, because at that time my portfolio was horrible. I don't know why she just didn't say like, guys, don't talk to this person. But anyway, I ended up coming to JWT New York because of her, and my whole life in New York happened because she was so kind and dedicated her time to help people. But I'll say that nowadays I get less worried when ideas are dead, because I was so passionate about the idea, and more worried about my creatives, that I'm like, I don't want them to lose like steam. I don't want them to be like, upset. I want them to be like, so it's funny kind of how I totally understand what you're saying. But I think what we try to do from like a manager's perspective, I think we are very mindful of who we put on each brief after like the amount of things that they got that were like tough, or like the amount of ideas that were that. So we really keep in mind, and we can do that because we're like right now small and like our teams work on everything, but we do feel like, oh man, that team was like really on back-to-back really tough briefs, and briefs that didn't go anywhere, or a brief that was that the client like bought the idea, produced the idea, and then it didn't run. So like we need to give them a juicy one. So let's get this brief that we know it's going to happen by Thanksgiving. Let's only put them in it and like have them produce something, because creatives get fulfilled by producing. So like, let's try to do that. Beyond that, I think it goes a little back to resilience being like the thing that like either makes it or break you, because the most successful teams are the resilient ones. I don't think I've ever been the creative that had the brilliant idea in the shower. And when I like got the brief, I'm like, oh, I got it. And it's like this bombastic idea. Never. Like I was never that person. I was always like trying hard to crack the brief and like, learn how to have ideas. But I think I was always very like, okay, what's the next one? Okay, this time it didn't go. Like I never let that make me like the creative that complains all the time, the creative that like makes everything very hard. So, so I think that's something that you have to try to tell your team of the importance. And sometimes like it's annoying to hear because you're like, oh, we're going to come up with something even better than that. And Greg is like my boss is like super optimistic in a way that sometimes I'm like, no, I know this is like, nothing's going to come out of this, especially when I was working under him. I was like, this is not a brief that like we can do amazing work for. Let's just get done with it and go to the next one. But being like, optimistic and tireless, I think really makes you better. And I think, I guess then just showing how, to me as a creative, I was always happy about having ideas in the deck that were presented to clients. So I was like, as long as my ideas are going into the client and it's not like it's okay, if the client kills it, that sucks. But at least like, my creative directors are approving it and it's going to the client. So then I'm going back to my creatives and I'm saying, hey, this was a really tough brief. You have 3 ideas in the deck, or like, hey, this was just like this is you're doing really well. Like things are gonna happen and it takes time. And like, I wish I had, I guess, better advice, but it's like, as long as you are answering briefs and cracking, and getting ideas presented to the clients, that's all you can be doing until like stuff really happens. And it's tough. I got like, you get down, you just have to really try to not spend too much time mourning ideas, and really go back to see what you're going to do next and get inspired. But it's tough. It's very tough.
I totally agree with you. And I really do feel that we are emotional as creatives. We are emotional with the ideas, but when you are in a position that you're a leader, you really care about the people and about the creatives and not to make them so frustrated. So I really like that, the way of thinking that, come on, you have ideas on the deck. It was presented to clients. The clients, they didn't get it, but you're doing good.
Yeah.
Great.
100%. And I think like at the end of the day, you see that like, if you are those creatives that like really get frustrated and bummed down and like become hard to work with, you're just not going to go as further because people don't want to be around that kind of. So you just learn how to bounce back more and more and more and more. And then you become like easier to succeed.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. And keep up the good work.
You're
doing great.
Yeah,
so proud of you.
I'm inspired by you all the time. But so thank you for joining.
Thank you, Bianca. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Brett. Thank you to all of you creatives who joined the session.
Yeah. I see familiar faces. This is so nice. Hi, Victoria. Joan, Vanessa, work at Mischief. Thank you for not leaving me hanging here.
Both Vanessas.
Oh, yes, I know. There are 2 Vanessas.